All right, we're back at the Pod People Press Cast. The Pod People Press Cast presented by the Anchorage Press in beautiful downtown Anchorage, Alaska. Joining us, the art sleuth, the one and only Jean Bundy. How you doing, Jean?
I'm fine. How are you, Matt?
Doing great. We love what you do for the press, talking all about the museum, talking about art, not just in Alaska, but New York and the world over. Let's start with that. What got you into art in the first place?
Well, I suppose back in the old days, in the post-war era, I was a dyslexic, student at school, and they threw me a pencil and crayons and said, you can't do anything else, so draw and paint. So I rebelled on it, but seemed to came back to it later on in life, and I do both writing and painting. I have shown my art in Anchorage, but I show it at Pleiades Gallery in New York City just because it appeals to New Yorkers better. I give away a lot of my art.
What's your style?
So basically, I like acrylic paint. Because I'm terribly allergic to oil. If I see linseed oil, I break out. So I made a pact with oil and said goodbye to it. I like realism to a point in abstraction. I kind of like the middle. Where does abstraction and realism meet? So I kind of, and I hear sort of music, even though I'm not a musician, I sort of hear music in my head that says, get jiggy and be a little bit more abstract.
Gotcha.
And I try to play that with the writing too.
What do you think of the Anchorage art scene?
It's changed tremendously. It's very... I think what's the exciting part is what's happening with Native Alaskans here. It's very different than the 70s and 80s. In the 70s and 80s, there were too many prints made of people who had come to Alaska and decided to be artists, and too many watercolor, too many oil prints, which end up being thrown around at galas. So you see someone buying one, and the next gala it's put back into the...
So you think the native scene is doing the most interesting
stuff? I think so. I think what's really fascinating to me is Native Alaskans who go to colleges and grad schools and take Western education, and mix it with their indigenous history of art. And I think there's an incredible amount of things going on in Anchorage connected with this mix of Western and Indian art. That we don't have technically Indians here. But, I tell people that's, if you want to invest, that's where you should go. I think there are a tremendous amount of everything from rappers to photographers to painters. And we're also doing a lot in the with Arctic cultures, especially Norway. There's a tremendous amount of the Anchorage Museum is very involved with the Norwegian Sami, which are their indigenous artists. And last June there was a big conference, which I was very lucky to attend in Harstad, Norway, and there will be others hopefully coming up, but there's a tremendous amount of art, of Native Alaskan art being shown in Norway and vice versa, of Sami art being shown in Anchorage.
Okay, is that a date worth marking on the calendar when they're going to be doing that?
No, I don't think anything's. I think they had one. There's supposed to be one in a year and a half, another conference, and I will let you know.
Gotcha. So obviously you're also kind of a political person, like most of us, and really art is necessarily on some level political. How has the Trump era changed you as an artist?
Well, it gives me a lot of ingredients to write about, which is, always nice for whether you're a writer or a painter to have content that's thrown at you. I think what people don't realize about painting is that it's very close to writing, and which is one of the reasons when I recently finished my PhD on the art of Winston Churchill, and people are very surprised that he painted. And I think that the connection between painting and writing is much closer than people realize. You can sort of go back and think of, early cultures writing on sand, and the combination of writing and painting were almost similar. So I think that painting is, or any form of painting, sculpture is a form of communication, and it really needs to have content. And there have been times, for instance, in the 50s, where in the post-war, people like Jackson Pollock were told that, or we were told that they didn't have anything to say within their abstraction, and now we know that's not true. So I think that art is a great place to communicate the country's angst. And in some cases, the message becomes stronger than the actual physical painting or sculpture. So I think that art is meandered in the social. Certainly, you look at the 30s, the Great Depression, the WPA. It's terribly too bad that the present Washington government doesn't really care about art. A lot of people are very worried about that. The College Art Association is one of the groups that is extremely worried about the fact that we're not giving enough money to art. And then that gets back to the Norwegians, ironically, that their government, their culture spends much more money on state art than we do.
Yeah. So do you have another art show coming up soon?
Mine personally, or well, I'm always showing, and I just sent one to. I have a group. I have a solo show, I believe, in September in New York. I usually have a piece. I just went to UPS yesterday. I have a piece in New York right now, and my personal art tends to be quirky. I love things like walking down the street and seeing a hydrant and superimposing it with another, something else that's totally not, pipe oriented. So I did a piece last year on California drought before they started raining on their hydrant, and then superimposing it with cactuses in the background. So I tend to be kind of quirky, that sort of balance between abstract and realism.
But definitely statement in the end.
Yes. I think it's great, and certainly that translates into my column, The Sleuth. And in addition to reporting on art shows, whether it's here or outside, I kind of piggyback on my husband if he has a business, or if I'm going to go visit my children who have gone to live outside. I always go to see a museum, and I think that. In addition, I try in my column, in addition to reporting back, to really teach people what it's like to read a painting. A lot of people don't understand how to read a painting, especially a portrait or a landscape. And you can, without actually reading words, you can actually, if it's a person, you can, see that they're happy, sad, or a landscape, which are traditionally in 3 horizontal bands. You can see how they've changed from sort of 18th, 19th century traditional, pond in the front, trees and sky in the background. And if you sort of understand that, then you enjoy walking through a museum more.
All right, sounds good. I guess we'll leave it off there, walking through a museum. Always do get a chance to do that at the Anchorage Museum or any of the other fine art galleries around Anchorage. And always read The Art Sleuth by Jean Bundy in the Anchorage Press at every newsstand around town. and at anchoragepress.com. Well, thanks for coming in, Jean.
Thank you. Thank you, Matt.
All right, Pod People Presscast continues after this.